Welcome to Rewriting Real Estate, Millionaire Moves and Modern Tactics with your host, Kimberly Falker, a coach, mentor and strategist for agents who are ready to scale smarter. On this show, you'll learn from high-performing agents who are building their empires with innovation, intention and no apologies. Whether you're an experienced agent stuck at a plateau or a rising star ready to fast-track your success, this podcast gives you the real-world tactics, mindset shifts, and lessons learned from those rewriting the rules.
Hi, and welcome back to Rewriting Real Estate. Today I'm talking with Will Penney. He's someone who has mastered consistency, systems, and client experience at a level very few agents ever reach. Will Penney has been in the business for nearly 4 decades, building a referral-driven machine, and he continues to produce at the top of his market year after year. So I'm so excited to get started with Will. Hey, Will, I'm so happy to have you on here. I don't know you personally. I know some of the guests I bring on, but I discovered you in what's called the BAMI Awards, and it's a platform called BAMX, and they just did an amazing awards ceremony last week, and you were submitted in a category. Which was your category? I can't remember. Was it humor?
I'm not even aware of it.
Oh, you weren't there watching?
No, I don't know anything about it.
Is
that the broke agent?
Yeah, the
network?
broke agent. Yeah. The broke.
I was actually submitted?
Yeah, that's how I found you.
No way. I didn't even know.
So the way that I resonated with you is I think it was in the humor category because, and we'll get into this in a second, you've been in the business for more years than most agents and have had amazing staying power. And your video I totally related to. I got in the business in 2004, and that was before all the online stuff where you had to put your open house ad in the paper. But anyway, you were talking about the process of showing houses, and I totally related because we used to have maps, print out maps, and
the map
draw
book.
the directions.
And then on top of it, I just did another video. The buyer was in the car with you. That was their expectation.
Oh, yeah.
They would come to my office. I'd have the map book. I'd have to go pick the keys up.
Yeah.
Ahead of time. And then when they were all done, I'd have to bring the keys back to the 8 different real estate offices. But they'd be in the back seat and I'm trying to I'm trying
the
to be
maps
on
out.
stage, being nice. I'm looking at the copies of the map books, going down the highway. Oh, then you had to have extra insurance on your car because God forbid anything happened.
Oh my gosh, I know. And even when there were times when I'm, as a female, I'm driving around with men that I've never met before.
Right. It's crazy. And every year something like that happens and it goes wrong.
I know, right? Yeah. I actually he's a great guy, a great client, really enjoyed him, but he had the most interesting habit or behavior. And he'd see 8 houses at a time, but in every single house, he used the restroom. So it's like he's marking his territory all over the Twin Cities. I was in Minnesota at the time.
And now you're in Tampa?
Well, I grew up here. I married a Minnesotan and didn't know they all go back for a while. So we did 20 years.
Do you live in Tampa now?
Yeah, Tampa Bay area. Yeah.
I've been going to I can't handle the winter here. So we go down January and February. This year we did January, February, came home for a month, then went back a month. But my wife has a home staging business.
Oh, wow.
And so it's hard to leverage that. I can do whatever I want.
From anywhere nowadays, at least, not like in the old days.
The way my team is set up, it's set up like a doctor's office.
Okay.
And,
we'll get into that in a second. Let's start at the very beginning because you might be one of the rare few that actually got into real estate right away in life. Give the history of how you got into it and a little bit of the growth of it.
So I graduated from high school in 1987 in Kent, Ohio. I'm from England originally. So I was born in England. I came over here when I was 10. We were supposed to stay 3 months and then my parents stayed. We were actually living in Ireland for 5 years before that. My dad worked for a typewriter company.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, we stayed and I got my real estate license. And because I met a guy, I was working at an auto parts store. I was supposed to go to college. I took 1 semester and then bailed. But I was working at this auto parts store and this guy came in and he's, you should reach out to the Century 21 office. I know the owner there, and you could be his Portage County guy. So in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is my way in.
Right.
But I didn't realize the Portage County guy actually meant, okay, then you're an independent contractor. You could just go hang out in Portage County if you want. It didn't actually mean anything. But it seemed to me at the time, I'm going to be the representative for the entire county at Century 21.
That'll get me the girls.
That'll get me rich.
And the girls.
So anyway, I actually met my wife at a RE/MAX office.
So it worked.
It did work. Yeah. And we've been together ever since. We had our 33rd anniversary on Friday.
Wow.
And I'm boisterous, so I've really had to work at it. But anyway, he told me that I could be the Portage County guy. And I went and met with Rudy Calais, his friend, who didn't take me seriously. And I got my license the following spring. And I ended up connecting with the top agent there. His name was Hank Thalrose. He was number 2 in the country in 1986 for units sold, 384 units as a single agent.
Jeez. He didn't have a life.
Yeah, he was in his 60s. But anyway, I asked him, my nickname at the office was Flash in the Pan Penny. So nobody would take me seriously at my age.
Back then, there probably weren't a whole lot of 19-year-olds in real estate. It's more trendy.
I was the youngest agent in our Akron area board of realtors at the time. And then Denise Carter, she was an agent. Then she came in and she was 18. Then she became the youngest. But the point is, I would get no help. I was getting no help at all. None of my friends' parents would use me. And I wanted to do well. I got licensed in April, got my first sale in September, and my goal was to do 1 a month. I did 17 my first full year. But what I did is I went to Hank and I said, if I carry your briefcase, drive your Cadillac for you, can I go on listing appointments and on showings with you? I won't say a word. I just want to learn your behavior.
That was smart.
And he let me do it. And then when he went on vacation, I would take him and his wife to the airport. He'd let me drive his Cadillac during the week, and then I'd go pick him up. So we had a really good relationship. He got married late in life at 48, and he had a son who was about my age. Even though he was in his late 60s, he had a son who was about my age because he got married at 48. And had a kid right away, his wife did. And so he was very helpful, and that's what helped me. I left, went to RE/MAX, choked out because I wasn't doing enough business, because back then RE/MAX didn't have a commission split. It was just a monthly fee, and it was $1,500 a month. But then I went back to Century 21, stuck with it. And by the time I was 25, I sold 62 houses that year.
Wow.
With no internet. So I started doing really well. And then at 31, we started our own brokerage, kept that until 2021. That's pretty much my career. Started a team in 2013. 2010, I sold 110 houses myself with a showing agent. That was my best year as an individual agent. And then I started a team, and we built that up to about 50 million in sales with my team of 6. We did 256 transactions in 2019. But now that my kids are they're all both out of college, out of the house, I don't need to do that much anymore. So we're doing about 25 to 30 million now.
Okay. You found your sweet spot.
I just don't want to work that hard. And
Right.
I've got other things on my plate now. I've got a social media business where I help agents build Facebook groups to nurture their sphere. And then I'm obviously, being at EXP, I've got a pretty good sized revenue share organization.
Well, that's good. So when you look back at your early years of your career, what kind of, beyond reaching out to Hank, what were the kind of critical habits that you remember developing to get you to that bigger level?
Great question. To get to any level, he told me, no one else would have told me this, but he did. We are in the lead generation, lead conversion business. And the reason that 87% of realtors fail by the end of 5 years, which just means they went and got another job. Most of them get another job before then, but
True.
The reason is because they spend all their time working with buyers and sellers. They run out of work and they don't focus on lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal early on, I got married at 23 in 1992. I sold 30 homes that year. Following year, I sold 45, 46. Then the following year, about 60. Then I was hanging between 55 and 70 transactions. And this was before the internet.
Right.
Everything was face-to-face, everything. We had no scanners. Every touch point in the transaction that required a signature or initial, we had to do face-to-face. So the thing that I did early on, my goal was to get an appointment a day. So I would call for sale by owners until I got an appointment each day or expireds. And every day I would get an appointment. So my goal was to get 5 appointments a week, 250 a year, convert 25%, 60 transactions. That was my brain.
And then obviously you're disciplined and not jumping. You did that every day throughout your
Because
career.
my goal, if I'm not disciplined, I became very focused on the outcome. Because if I've got a text that I've not taken out of my, a calendar event that I've not taken out of my phone that says text 20 clients, I never look at it anymore. Time blocking doesn't work for me. So I run a lot.
Like task, like you have a very specific task with an outcome.
Outcomes.
Okay.
I focus on the outcome. I need to get an appointment today. I need to run 25 miles by Friday. I need to have 50 by Sunday. So that's how my brain works. So with running and with working, that's what I focused on. Getting an appointment a day, because that was a manageable thing. Adding 2 people to my database a week. That was a manageable thing. However I got there, my business coach says I win dirty. I don't have any structure around it, but I got the appointment each day, and then I didn't have to think about it anymore.
Then did you early on know that you needed like a administrative help, or did you cover it all in the early years? Because not all of us, some of us are really good at sales, but we are horrible at systems or organization.
Yeah, so here's what happened. So I got married at 23. That was in 1992. In 1996, we had our son, Adam. I was selling a lot of homes. I was 27. I was selling 60 to 70 homes a year. I was making like 90 to 100 grand. But 90 to 100 grand in 1996 was legit. I bought a house in 1994. I had a Land Rover. We were doing great. But I knew that my wife decided to stay home with our kids. She was a realtor as well. So she became an agent when she moved here. She moved here for other reasons, but then she stayed. We got together. She got her real estate license. She wasn't a realtor at the RE/MAX office. She was a front desk person. So between the two of us, we were selling about 80 homes a year. We never worked together as a team.
Okay.
So I was selling 60. She was selling about 25. But we prospected every day. And I told her, she still accredits her success to me. I told her early on, you got to prospect. So that's what I did. But when you talk about systems, I knew that when we had our child, that my anxiety grew if I didn't get home early. If I was out late working, had to sell a house and was out until 11 o'clock at night because we had to run back and forth to get in, that stressed me out because I knew that I was supposed to be home and I didn't want to end up stressing my relationship with my wife, especially with her at home with a baby. So in 1997, I hired an hourly paid showing agent to show houses for me at night and on the weekends. So that was the only part I had. We did have a closing coordinator at the Century 21 office, so they managed that. But then I would have her show houses, and then I would jump in and write the offer.
Okay.
And then I grew that from there. And then in 2001, when we started our own brokerage, I had an office person that sent out like letters to for sale by owners, and she was also I made her my showing agent.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. And then I had her go and measure rooms. I had her started doing that. So I started getting all early on because I was selling so many houses. A lot of agents anticipate the success, but never get there. Mm-hmm. They get so hung up on the prep work. I didn't. I had to reel things in. I was selling so many houses.
You didn't have time for that.
That I had to, I didn't want to be gone every night. I didn't want to be working late and have to not be at home on the weekends.
Right.
So I fixed the glitch. I ended up getting a showing agent early on. Then in 2013, I got a full-time office person who worked on my listings. And then she also handled my closings. And then she got her real estate license and I taught her to sell houses. So my 3 admin people all sell houses. So their number one focus is that they have W-2 positions supporting my sales business. And then they make up the rest of their income by selling homes. I got them leads and that's how I did it. So I grew it. It's like a doctor's office. So now I teach other agents to do that.
So when you say like a doctor's office, explain that to me, because I may not
so when you go to a
the
doctor's
same way that
office,
you do.
when you go to a doctor's office, you sign in with one person, another person comes out, walks you back, weighs you, sits you on a chair, takes your blood pressure, then the doctor comes in.
Right.
Doctor does his or her thing, then they leave, then somebody else comes in, then you go out, and if you got a prescription, you talk to somebody else. So the doctor comes in for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but they're the ones you remember.
And they're the reason you're going there.
Correct. So I outsource my doctor's office team. I have a listing manager, a showing agent, a closing coordinator. So if I come over to your house and talk to you about listing the house, I do the market analysis. I discuss the price with you. I have you go over an expense sheet and listing agreement. Then I leave. Samantha comes back. She goes over all the disclosures with you, measures the rooms, gets a key, put a sign up, takes it back, puts it in the MLS. Then Jen makes flyers. They bring all that stuff back. I have nothing to do with any of it. And then when an offer comes in, I oversee that. So
do you do your own
the
open houses, or in the earlier years, did you do all of it? Once you had your doctor's office team.
I've only had the doctor's office team since 2013.
Okay.
So for 24 years before that, it was just me selling houses with a showing agent.
Got it.
From 1997 on.
And going back to when you first started
myself.
Lead generating, you said you called on for sale by owners. Did you do any other tactics, or was that really your main source of business?
No, for sale by owners. And early on in 1997, I went to see a guy named Joe Stump, who had Buy Referral University. I drove to Cincinnati, went to his 3-day event, and he banged it into my head, everyone else in the room, that you need to build a referral-based business. So I had two things that I cared about. I got top producer in 1994, and I started sending out a newsletter every month that I would have to fold and put a sticker on it and a stamp. My wife and I did that. It's starting in 1990, staying in touch with my past clients with a newsletter. But keep in mind, we didn't have the distractions now. So it used to be just know, like, trust. They would remember you. Now it's know, like, trust, and you have to spend all your time to get them to remember you.
That's right.
Because everybody has one of these, so they're drowning on it, and their brains are mashed potatoes. Mine included. We're spending 7 to 9 hours a day on our phones. So I had two things that made me grow quickly. I got social proof. So let me back up. First, I would work on my past clients. Every time I got a past client, I'd put them in my top producer thing, and I would reach out to them every month. They would get my newsletter. I'd call them once a quarter. Okay. Then I would get reference letters from everyone because I was young. And most people would look at me and go, I lost listings. Even though I was selling 60, 70 homes a year, I was one of the top agents in my town. I would still not get listings because people thought I was too young.
Yeah.
So I was having to spend a lot of time validating myself that you and I don't have to do now, but I did then because I was young. And I would get reference letters, and I had a stack, like a 3-ring binder of reference letters, which is now my Google. Yeah. So now I've got 557 reviews on Zillow, and I've got 339 on Google.
Now I know there's it's a common question. New agents, even experienced agents, and I can honestly say I'm bad about asking for reviews. Have you found that when asking for reviews that there's a kind of a sweet time of the transaction process that makes it easier?
Absolutely. So I actually mention reviews at the first appointment.
Okay.
I tell them I let them know that my number one goal is you having a great outcome. That's it. I can do the rest of it in my sleep. So you having a great outcome is my number one focus. And at the end, I'm going to ask you for a review. If I do a great job, I would hopefully have earned it at that point. Once all this is done, I'm going to ask you for a review. If I do a crappy job, hopefully you're going to let me know before we get to that point that you're not happy with something. If I'm not running at your pace, it's not because I don't want to, but if you have a standard that's not lining up with mine, I can assure you I'm going to do everything I possibly can to meet your standard.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Usually we can. I say usually we can, but sometimes we can't. And you just need to let me know, and you're not going to hurt my feelings, because I would look at that as a positive. Because the last thing I would want is for you to have disappointment at the end, feel like the money that you paid us wasn't worth it. So I have those discussions at the beginning.
That's good.
And I give them freedom to know that if I'm hot air, I say, I know I have a strong personality. So if I'm coming on too strong and it turns out to just be garbage and I'm a silver-tongued devil and I tricked you, then the way you ruin my life is give me a 1-star review and put it all go get drunk and put it all in a review. I tell them that.
I love that. That's great. That's great. Yeah.
I tell them that. Go drink 4 Bud Lights and go to town. Give me a terrible review if this all turns out to be a lie.
So with that being said, for agents that struggle with that, what's the biggest mind shift they need to make in that process?
The mind shift is you need to talk about reviews when you meet them.
Okay.
Say, listen, most agents are focused on selling you a house, getting paid. I'm focused on you having a great outcome so that you give me a good review on Google.
Mm-hmm.
Because all a review is a byproduct of an excellent relationship. And that's what I want us to have. So at the end, I'm going to ask you, when you get enough reviews, when you get a call from buyer or seller, I always send them a video text. Hey, it was great chatting with you. Just wanted to send you this quick video so you could put a face to a voice. I can't wait to meet with you. I'm really excited. By the way, I'm sending you my link to my reviews because my clients can talk about me better than I can. Please take a minute to look at them. And I send them, we use the reviews to pre-sell. So once you've got a few,
right,
you use them to pre-sell you.
That's great. I love that.
And then you ask them at the end. We have a moving truck that we let our clients use. And I manage that for everyone because I have to get the paperwork. I have to get the proper insurance stuff because I don't want to have I'll be the one with the liability. So for my whole team, if someone wants to use the truck, I'm the one that oversees that because it's easy, but I send the paperwork because I don't want anything missed. When they bring the truck back, they have to take a picture of themselves with it. They have to do a video walk around to make sure there's no damage. And then you send me a picture showing that they filled the gas up. At that point, I call them and I say, thanks so much. I hope the truck was great. Do you mind if I send you a link so you could give us a good review? We had just lent them our $60,000 moving truck for a whole day for free.
Yeah, it's kind of that's a no-brainer there.
Time to get one. But if you don't have a moving truck, you need to be talking about reviews and how important your service is all the way through. Because what that does is it builds trust. It raises your own bar inside of you. Mm-hmm. Because when you start focusing on the outcome and you know you need to step it up because you're going to ask them to grade you at the end, it's going to improve the level of service that you give your clients. And it's going to give you the social proof that's going to give you even more business because everybody's checking Google.
That's true. That's true.
The other thing everyone's checking right now is ChatGPT.
I know.
So you want to make sure that you're being recognized as one of the top agents in your marketplace on ChatGPT,
Mm-hmm.
which I am.
That's great. Now, regarding, I know that you've got a pretty amazing buyer consultation process. What's your structure? Because I know that ever since the NAR settlement, things have changed. And I know a lot of buyers agents are still, even after time, are still struggling with that change, especially in today's market right now, which is a little struggling anyway for a lot of people. But what's the biggest mistake agents who are working with buyers make right now?
They're making assumptions, first of all. They're not spending time talking about how they get paid. They're not, because here's the problem. We use Dotloop or you use DocuSign. It's one of those two, more than likely. We're sending everything that way. People don't read it. They sign it. And if you're not having clear conversations ahead of time about how I'm putting 3% on this buyer on this buyer agreement. If we go, we're going to ask the seller to pay that on your behalf as a concession on the agreement. They could come back and say they'll only pay 2. They'll only pay 2.5. I'll make it so that you'll only have to ever pay 0.5 point. I'm having these discussions with the buyer at the very beginning. So if it comes up where they've got to write a check for 1% of $300,000, then they're not screaming at me because I talked about it back at the buyer consultation. So I think that where agents make mistakes is that they I look at it as a date. If I met you at Applebee's, right, on our first date, and we're both excited and we're both apprehensive, and we both start talking at the table, or I do, because I'm the guy. I'm like, we're going to have dinner. What time can we go back to your place? I think without exception, every woman is going to stand up and leave.
Right.
And the problem is that agents they're having their appointments this way. They would never pull a listing agreement out as soon as they walk in the door at a listing, because we're used to that. You've got to get in. You got to build rapport with them. We call it getting in the red. You want to get in, have a personal interaction with them, walk through the house. And then you talk about the listing agreement is simply a housekeeping item that we need in order to tie this up. But they're bringing this buyer agreement out because they have to do it at the house before they show it. They're not having very many conversations around it. They're not talking about how long it's good for. They're not talking about if it's just for this house or if it's for a year. And then they're having upset clients later, and they're creating extra work and stress for themselves. So I think communication, setting expectations, and talking about the points that you know will cause you problems if you don't talk about it, get those out of the way at the beginning. Because if a buyer finds, here's the other thing, buyers don't understand that if they've got to pay some of that buyer fee, your compensation, and the lender doesn't put that on their good faith estimate, they've got to document that money as part of their down payment. I've seen agents where they get to the closing and the deal gets delayed by a week because they never notified the loan officer that the buyer has to pay some of this commission, and it's on a separate form than the purchase agreement. And now you're telling them that they've got to pay 1%, and the buyer already knew, but now the lenders know we haven't sourced those funds.
And I know that I get a lot of pushback from agents that are newer who have invested in Zillow Leads, because a lot of those are, if I don't meet them at the house and show them the house, then I'm going to lose that lead to another Zillow agent. And I think that mucks them up a bit because they're skipping the whole entire first date process teaching them. And I think that's really messed with a lot of agents, even experienced agents. I've got an agent partner of mine, and she's made her money through Zillow Leads. But again, when you get the call, there's a house, they want to do a showing, then they're stuck in that what do I do dance,
That's because they're only focusing on the house.
That's right.
Because the buyer wants to see the house. It's like those old memes. I would like to see the house today at 6 p.m. You know, the YouTube video with the robotic person and the agents. But I'm having dinner with my wife at 6 p.m. I don't care when you're having dinner with your wife. I want to see the house at 6 p.m.
I will call another agent then.
Yeah.
That's I think the fear. And I think that's just when agents are panicked about just getting paid versus actually building a business that has
That's how most real estate agents are. That's
true.
Just the vast majority. I was talking to a guy this morning. He's new. I plan on staying at this company for 3 years. Then I'm going to go to your company. I'm like, that's not going to happen.
No.
And I said, because you're going to get busy and then there'll be a never good time to leave. You'll either be too busy to leave, or if you're dead, which nobody wants, if your business is slow, then you're going to be too scared to leave. You have to start thinking beyond where you are. And I think if you're working with a buyer or a seller, we have to think about this is how my head works anyway. What points in the transaction are they going to get upset about, struggle with, have questions about? And you have to get those out of the way ahead of time. Because I tell my team, if your seller has to call you asking you for an update, you failed them.
Yeah. And every transaction, I do this preemptively stripings, every transaction has bumps in the road. No matter how
but a lot of them
there's always a bump, but behind the scenes is where I take care of the bumps and only share what is really necessary. There's a lot of bumps that happen without them.
I let them know that we can't control the buyer. We can't control the loan officer. We can't control the
other agent,
the other agent,
the inspector,
lender, any of it. And I tell them I'm going to try to anticipate it, but I cannot. It's impossible for me to know I'm going to try to manage all of this. But I think what a lot of real estate agents do is they put their Superman cape on. They act like they can fix everything ahead of time. Then when it doesn't work out, they expose themselves and their client's upset with them. And we are
it's
a paid
kind of like
guy.
when you go to a restaurant and they say it's a 40-minute wait and they get you in 20 minutes, you feel better. It's almost better to say there's going to be stuff. But then when it goes smoother than they expect, it's a better experience for them too.
I think a lot of the hurdles that we run into in these transactions come up a lot. And I think it's our job. I think where a lot of us now, communication, and it makes you and me sound old, but the problem is so many agents don't answer their phone. They're texting about things that they shouldn't be texting about.
Right. They're negotiating the entire process.
They're negotiating via text.
Yeah.
And then and then you see them on like lab coat agents. You see them in these real estate groups. I don't get paid to talk to you on the phone. So that's why you make $86,000 a year and you're never going to do better than that.
Now, speaking of that, I know that you coach and have a leadership experience both with the agents on your team, but also, I know you coach outside of that. But what do you think when you see agents struggling, like stuck in the 5 to 10 million in production year over year? What do you see holding them back, or what patterns are consistently the problem in your mind?
It's a great question. I think the big bottlenecks, as far as I'm concerned, are showing homes. I think that if they've got 50% of their business or more is coming from buyer transactions, especially in a low inventory market where they've been having to run around like right now, it takes all the control. And I think that what happens is as they start doing well in that 5 to 10 million range, where let's say they're making $200,000 a year, but they're working 7 days a week. And I think, and they can never get out of it because they didn't put anything in place ahead of time to alleviate the main bottleneck where we spend most of our time is transaction coordination and showing homes. You can do transaction coordination at 3 a.m. You could do it at 6 a.m. You can do it at 7 a.m. You can do it at 3 p.m. The one part where most agents are running around, especially if they're taking Zillow leads, is showing buyers homes. If they're selling 30 houses a year, 20 of them are buyer transactions. And then what happens is they end up working nights and weekends and they don't have any, and they can't back out of that.
Right.
And then they end up, it ruins it eats them alive. It ruins their relationships with their spouse and their kids. And that is where, I think that's where the wheels come off. And then they can't sell more houses because they're already working 50, 60 hours a week. And they spend their days reacting because you already know all this, but our jobs are 2 jobs. We've got our job as a realtor takes up 60 hours a week, which doesn't give us enough time to do our part-time job, which is lead generation and lead conversion, which keeps the thing moving. And I think the vast majority of agents that get in that $5 to $10 million range, they're on a roller coaster of they're spending all their time trying to get stuff closed.
Rather than build. They're not building, they're just closing. And then it comes to a halt at some point, and they have to start all over again.
I've asked agents on my team, what have you done this week to move the needle forward and prospect? I've got 3 deals closing this week, so I've been focusing on that. I'm like, okay, cool. When those close,
you're starting all over again. Yeah.
You're starting all over again.
And it's going to be a 3-month gap between the next round of cycle.
So if you go back to what I had said at the very beginning of all of this, I was making calls 5 days a week. My number one focus was to get an appointment a day. Then whether I'm showing homes, putting out fires, going to inspections, final walkthroughs, whatever, that was just, I was filling in the gaps with that. But I was making calls to get an appointment a day, 5 days a week.
So with that being said, would you say that the number one differentiator between agents who grow steadily and those who stay stuck are failing on their focus? Like, to your point, they're not
prospecting.
They're not building the pipeline. They're just doing the roller coaster of I'm in, I'm out, I'm in, I'm out.
Yeah. So there's 2 issues. They're focusing on just the reactionary work, like the making the cake part. It's like the E-Myth, that book, The Entrepreneurial Myth. We spend our time, oh, your cakes are so tasty, Kimberly. You should open a store.
That's so nice.
And they spend all their time making the cakes and they've got no customers. And vast majority, the reason realtors fail is because their paychecks get too far apart. It's not because the work's too hard. It's because their paychecks get too far apart. And then because of their financial needs, they have to get another job. And then they're too tired to do real estate, or they might do it part-time. That's what happens. So if you lead generate and you prospect, you're going to fix that problem. But then you have to have systems in place or some leverage so that you can, if that $5 to $10 million agent had a showing agent, or if they hired an agency to do closing coordination for them for $350 or $400 a file, that would enable them to focus more time on the part-time job, which is lead generation. And then they'll start alleviating. Like I've had a showing agent, now she's full-time, but for her, it was just hourly $25 an hour. She was working in an appraisal office and she would come and work. She'd show homes for me from 5 to whenever at night and on the weekends. And she did open houses. And she would go to
Did you promise her a number of hours? Or it was just, okay.
I would pay her board dues, MLS fees. It was a W-2. Now it's $35 an hour. But if you get a part-time agent and they're showing houses for you 6, 8, 10 hours a week, and then you take them under your wing and show them how to build their own business, you can keep them for a long time.
Yeah, for sure.
Because they don't want to quit that $35 an hour part-time job.
That's true. And then how do you...
If you pay them a percentage of the commission, then it doesn't work.
Say that again?
If you pay them a percentage of the commission, it doesn't work. Because what happens is, because this happened to me, ultimately, they're showing the homes, which the consuming public looks at as our whole job. Their husbands look at it as our whole job. So if I've got someone on my team showing homes every night and every weekend for $30 an hour, their husband, for 10 or 20% of the commission, even though I gave them the buyer, I'm writing the offer, I'm handling all the high touch stuff, they're just showing homes. Ultimately, their husband, because this happened to me, is going to tell them, you're doing all the work for $35 an hour and he's making $8,000.
Yeah.
That's what, or not $35 an hour. I got that wrong.
The
they
percentage.
Don't do that when the percentage. So they come back to me and they're like, I want 30% of the commission instead of 20. And now you end up on this sliding scale of they're going to always want more and more. So if you take the commission out of the equation, make them a W-2 hourly employee, you can give them an hour. Then I pay them $30 an hour.
Oh, but you're right.
And I paid her board dues, MLS fees, and then I would send her $100 a month for gas. I'd give her Giant Eagle grocery cards for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she loved me and stayed with me forever.
Yeah.
And I
love
took
that.
the commission I took the commission out of the equation. And that's where most agents, they don't do that. They have a showing agent, they pay them part of the commission, which is too much.
Right.
But then if the agent doesn't sell you're involved in selling the house, or you're handing off the relationship, which is even worse.
Right.
Because if I give you my lead, they're going to remember you at the end. That's what makes it the doctor's office team. They come back.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Makes sense to me. And I could see how it would make sense to a lot of people. I'm curious, after you've been licensed since '88, what still excites you about real estate? Do you keep shifting in your role, or are you phasing out of production, or what's your vision?
I think this year I've sold about 30 houses, listings. Then I've got my team selling the rest, 130 houses, something like that.
And they get those off of your leads or your referrals or past clients, or their own?
Like we use Follow Up Boss, and I'm every week at our meeting. What'd you work on last week? What do you work on this week? Last week I called 6 people. The whole flipping week. I said, you called 6 people all week? They know better than that with me. But that's why they make a 6-figure income.
So if you had to strip your kind of business philosophy down to 3 success principles for a new agent right now, like somebody who just got licensed and you had to give them the bare bones basics on how to get started and then leverage, what would you say?
I think you need to start building a database from day one. And you need to start categorizing that database. I talk about it looking like an airplane. I didn't make that up. Someone else did. You've got first class, business class, economy. First class are your core advocates, people that they're gonna recommend Kimberly no matter what. Business class, they probably will recommend you. And the masses, which is economy, who knows? They get our monthly newsletter, that we invite them to our client events. But then the farther up the plane they get, the more touches they get and the more value they get. So that you have to do that. The second thing is you need to have outbound calling. Nothing's changed. We're in a belly-to-belly business. If you don't want to call people, then figure something else out, or maybe social media will work. But according to the NAR, that's still less than 10% of people finding an agent online. Mm-hmm. The problem is we see these, like I have a friend of mine. His name's Isaac Lightborn.
I know him. I sent him a referral. He sold a house to my nephew.
He's 23. He sells a lot of homes. He's got 42,000 followers on Instagram. Mm-hmm. He generates leads every day. The problem is he was on one of our masterminds. The problem is he makes other agents feel bad about themselves because they see his success and they're like, what? I've only got 1,700 followers. A month ago, I had 800.
Right.
So I only had 800 followers a month ago. I had a couple of banger videos and added 800 followers, all realtors. But my point is that I don't have very many followers. I'm not that followable. So my point is that most agents, they focus all their time on that because they think that's what they're supposed to do. Yeah. It's kind of going to Vegas and you brought 2,000 with you. You spent 1,870 of it. If I don't spend the other 130, there's no chance I'll get any of this money back. And then you end up spending it all. And I think they end up investing so much in social media, in consuming it, and they consume it under the guise that this is how I'm going to find ideas. So they become addicted to the consumption. And then they're trying to spend the rest of their day trying to find stuff to post about. And
it's also because it's more fun than doing outbound calls that might be uncomfortable. And that's where I feel like a lot of agents have gotten misdirected, is that fundamentally the back to the basics works. If you need a new buyer and you don't have money to spend, do some open houses for other agents and the price point that you want to work in, especially 100%. Nowadays because of the NAR stuff. That's the easiest, cheapest way to get somebody in the price open point houses that you want to be in. Yeah, because you don't have to, they don't have to sign up with you to walk an open house. So then you have the chemistry connection and then they want to work with you. So that's how I made 6 figures in my first year in 2004, was doing open houses for other agents. And I talked to I talked to a successful agent, and he said it's a numbers game. You got to get in front of 75 to 100 people. And so I decided to go all in and go fast. And I had 2 babies at home at the time, but I did 4 open houses a weekend, 4 different locations, 4 different homes. A, I wanted to find my jam of where I wanted to work, but B, I wanted to make the numbers hit faster. And I was very strategic about it. And I do teach agents this because I wanted to work in a price point that wasn't a first-time home buyer price point, because I wanted to be able to sell something for them. And then ultimately, that's how I wound up working myself into the luxury market. So I started doing open houses in the price point that was luxury. And so you don't have to be a huge producing agent to start learning how to go where you want to get, but you have to be strategic. But all that stuff isn't the sexy social media stuff. And that's where I think back to the basics, door knocking, open houses, and
door knocking
outbound
works.
Calls. It does.
There's people saying they don't. The 3 pillars, I think, are obviously building, maintaining your database, and you got to add to it, keep it clean constantly. Then the outbound calls, FSBOs, expireds, door knocking, whatever, open houses. And then you're going to have whatever's coming to you. And I think social proof is incredibly important. I started getting reviews on Zillow in 2010. I quickly became the top agent in the area with the most reviews. And before Zillow screwed it up for me, I was getting business. I sold 42 homes in 1 year just from Zillow, people looking for reviews. And then I bailed out of that because the Flex program, they're going to get rid of the find an agent button. They'll have to, because otherwise that's a hole in the bucket. They need to be able to control the referral fees. You can't have a find an agent button, and nobody seems to understand that.
I agree.
So I stopped getting reviews on Zillow. They're still there. I get no calls from them.
No.
None. And I used to get all of the calls from them. Now I do Google local service ads. I've got 330 some odd reviews. So that's where you need that's what you need to be doing. And if you want to do social media so that people, because they look you up on social media.
Yeah, you have to have a presence there. You can't be unsound, because then
you make that your job, because you listen to some people say that if you don't get ahead of AI, then you're going to be out of business. And if you're not on social media posting every day, you're going to be out of business. If you do everything that they tell you to do, this business has not changed. The only part that has changed is electronic signatures. Prove me wrong.
That's a good point. And being able to virtually show houses from like here in Tampa Bay or a relocation, everybody's
You're in a
moving
resort
down.
market. That doesn't happen in my market.
No. But like most of my buyers that are out of state only see the house either at inspection or at closing. And that's been a nice change in the industry for sure.
But other than that, the whole process of from offer to close, the reason Zillow couldn't get into it is because that last mile problem of offer to close has not changed.
Good
other
point.
than electronic signatures. Nothing has changed about it. The lenders have tightened back up. Title companies still want to make sure the title's good before they issue title insurance. Inspectors are still going to the house. Appraisers in most cases are still going to the house. And they're taking photos. Now with the new Fannie Mae rules, if they see any staining on a basement wall, they have to ask for a structural cert. If anything, they're getting tighter. They're not loosening up.
Yeah.
That's what I would say. This is a great business to be in. It's not that hard, but most agents aren't willing to. I always say my fear, like, why did you do well, Will? Because I was more fearful of missing a house payment than I was of being yelled at or someone screaming no at. Missing a house payment and getting a call from Chase is more devastating to me than a seller who I don't know yelling at me and saying, why am I calling during dinner?
I've really enjoyed this interview and you have such wisdom, but I do like to ask this one question at the end, and it'll be fun to hear from you because of your stage of the profession. If you had to move to a brand new city tomorrow and you knew no one, and we're not going to count Marco Island for this. I
would buy houses here anyway.
But what's one thing you would do starting on day one to scale as quickly as possible?
Oh, I do the 4 open houses a weekend.
Okay.
I would work at a national company like Real or EXP so that everyone was at my company because it's so much easier.
Yeah.
Why
and move to a state where you can do other agents' open houses. I find that's interesting. In some states, you're not allowed to do other agents.
Even at your same brokerage?
Same brokerage you can, but I can do it on any. Like I choose the neighborhood and the house.
I would always, from this point forward, knowing what I know, I would be at Real or EXP. I would go, if I had to move to an area, I would align myself with one of those agents. I would meet them all, assuming I still have my experience. I'm not.
Yeah. It's you now moving tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm moving to South Carolina or somewhere.
Right.
I would do open houses every weekend, and I would start calling FSBOs. I would get Red X or Vulcan 7 or Land Voice, and I would start calling all flipping day until I got an appointment again. That's what I would do. And I would have open houses. Nothing would change. And because I've talked to my business coach about this, who had the #1 RE/MAX team in Philadelphia. And we both had this conversation. You could drop me in any city and within 90 days, I'm getting paid.
And that's the beauty about real estate is your skills are transferable. The location really doesn't matter. I have restarted in 4 different markets. So I've restarted quite a few times.
That's incredible that you did that.
Thanks for listening to Rewriting Real Estate. If today's episode challenged your thinking or gave you a strategy worth trying, share it. The right move at the right time can change everything. Subscribe and listen in next week for more insight, more momentum, and more ways to grow your business your way.